I think we'll go ahead and get started. We use the mic because we are a webinar and we have folks joining us remotely, and we're of course happy to do that. For those who don't know, only a third of our employees are here at the downtown headquarters, so a lot of folks are joining remotely, and we're glad to have them join us. Thanks for sacrificing your lunch hour. I know we have Jeffers from First Five and Department of Education too, right? They stand out in the crowd. I can tell who they are. I'm Pete Chervinka. I'm one of the two chief deputies here at the Department of Social Services. And I want to thank folks. I'm not going to read back to you the all-staff memo that announced this event, but you're obviously here because you're interested in screening tools and some of the social media marketing and things that we've been doing. And we are lucky to have with us today Rose. She's come all the way from Chicago to talk to us. She's been on contract with us for a couple of years now. I first met her a few years ago at the Code for America Summit, and she was talking about access to programs, particularly a housing program run by the city of Chicago. This program had 800 slots, and they got 10,000 applications every single year for those 800 slots. So you can imagine a 92% denial rate and all the administrative effort that goes into that. And she was hired on to say there's got to be a better way to do that. And what she did was create a screening tool. It was also a program where you had to come down to the office and spend time sitting in the lobby and apply on paper for them. So you can imagine that if more than 9 out of 10 people came down to the office and got rejected, they were pretty mad about wasting their time. And there were a lot of workers in that program, too, who didn't like having to say no, 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 sorry to people. So her presentation at Code for America focused on that problem, and if she's willing and able, she can say a word or two more about that. But we brought her on contract here because we like the concept, and we thought, in our programs today, CalFresh, CalWorks, there are a number of our programs and particular programs in counties where the denial rates are over 40%. And we thought there can be a better way to do this. We need to be more client-focused, more user-centered focused, and be more effective with our clients' time and with our own administrative time and money in how we can fix that. So Rose came in. She'll talk a lot about the work she did. I'm not going to preview that for you beyond what I just said. She's happy to take questions. I think at the end she's going to run through it. And we'll also be taking questions via webinar. We're equipped to do that. So don't be shy. This is for your own education, and appreciate the fact that whether you work today in CalWorks, CalFresh, or childcare, you have come to hear the concept and to begin to think about how it might be applicable to other things we're doing. So Rose, thank you for making the trek. You missed it. It'll be 85 degrees on Sunday, but it's only 55 today.
Oh, still much warmer than Chicago. So, one, thank you so much to Pete Chervinka and the amazing team at the California Department of Social Services. Andrew, I know, is here, Justine, Karina also, who supported a lot of the technical capacity for today, and to all of you, public servants, for supporting families through programs every single day. So as Pete mentioned, my name is Rose Defrier, and I'm so excited to give a talk about digital marketing and specifically what happens before we help people find out if they qualify in about 10 simple questions, which take less than 5 minutes to answer. And that was really attractive. It continues to be attractive for the city of Chicago, where we first had our start, went live on the web September 1st, 2014, and we were able to reduce the determination time for clients by 75% in launching locally in Chicago, and significantly eliminated a number of ineligible and incomplete applications that were submitted through our pilot. And so over the past year, as Pete mentioned, we've partnered with the California Department of Social Services to run a series and an array of digital marketing experiments. It's just been tremendous to be a partner with one of the most innovative, cutting-edge governments right now in the United States of America. And effectively what we did was we spent a lot of time really trying to do digital marketing on Google, on Facebook, on Bing, but we also were able to do some integrations in public websites and public services as well. And so I'm also going to spend a little bit of time on that today. So in terms of just a little bit of my background, just so you know, so I also have a background in public policy, graduated with my MPP from the University of Michigan, pretty Michigan people know. Okay. And then I went to work for government underneath the Domestic Policy Council. So I spent a lot of time understanding programs and really some of the challenges, barriers, but also opportunities there. And then after school, I really wanted to do something that I could utilize my public policy background to also think about technology. And so I worked for Google as a marketing associate and would really deploy campaigns for the annual State of the Union address because it would happen in person in Washington, but also on the web, on YouTube. And so that's really sort of how I got my start, really thinking at the same time about governance, but also about the possibility for technology to help us do the work that we love to do even better. And then I co-founded mRelief, and so we are a team headquartered in Chicago of software developers, and through digital marketing strategies, we've been able to help 235,000 families connect to social services countrywide. So an overview of some of the key components of today's presentation. So we're going to first start by talking about social media marketing with a specific emphasis on Facebook. I know there's lots in the news and in the conversation about that right now, but I'm really excited and hopeful to also be able to answer questions too at the end about that as well. And then an overview of search engine marketing. And so that's specifically when we're thinking about what happens when people are Googling for certain words or Bing searching for certain words. How can we prompt them to find out if they qualify through that mechanism? And then I want to talk about the overall yield in California. And so how we've been able to deploy a certain amount of capital on these specific campaigns and how that's helped unlock resources for families that live in the great state of California. And then finally, I want to talk about my favorite topic, which is new strategies ahead. So how are we thinking about what we've learned in the past to inform some new things that are ahead in terms of our digital marketing work and our partnerships work? Okay, so mRelief, in partnership with California Department of Social Services, uses social media to engage low-income Californians in their feeds. And so we leverage specifically the capability to focus on age, location, gender, and other key characteristics. But most of all, we also leverage it because of the sheer volume of how many users are on these platforms. So when we talk about Facebook, we're talking about 2 billion users a month. On Twitter, we have about 330 million people that use that every month. On Instagram, we have 500 million Instagrammers that use the app every single day. And 1 of every 5 minutes right now of people in the U.S. is spent on mobile, either using Facebook or Instagram. So there's tremendous potential to really unlock these moments where we are thinking about how can we meet people where they are. I think this is really about an effort to meet people where they are in the digital age. So now let's talk a little bit about search marketing. So as I mentioned, in partnership with CDSS, we've also been able to utilize search tools. And specifically, we want to leverage the capability that they have to focus on location. And the precision with location is really, really accurate on search engine marketing, as well as keywords. So some of the key things that that occur to people when they're searching or in need. And how we can really anticipate and predict what are the ways in which people will express themselves when they're trying to navigate resources and services. And so right now on Google, there are 3.5 billion daily searches, and 900 million people use Bing to search each day. So it's really a great opportunity to find people who might be eligible for programs. So how does this all work? So what I'm really excited to do is to really go step by step and share how we deploy campaigns on 2 of these avenues, because it's easy to do, and you will be doing it in no time. So the first step on Facebook is really essentially to choose an advertising objective. And so, for example, you could have an awareness goal. Maybe your program name changed recently or it's been updated and you want an ad that shares the name on how the program benefits users. So example, CalFresh, money to buy food. Or you could have a consideration goal. So these are really thinking about metrics that are really common in terms of how people drive awareness about technology. So these are app installs. So maybe you just launched a really great new mobile app for summer meal sites and want to drive app installs. Or video views. There's a really great new video you just debuted on how people are engaging with your program and your services, as well as lead generation. So maybe there's a group of people you want to be able to call because a disaster just took place in their community and you really want them to know a number that they can to call. And then finally, which mRelief really focuses on, is a conversion goal, because we're not quite an app in the way that you would download us on Google Play, on the App Store. We specifically live on the web. So our conversion goal is how many people find out if they qualify, whether they're eligible, ineligible, or maybe they've given just enough information where we actually need a little more information to find out if they qualify. So we have partnered on conversion metrics to really be able to measure results. So the next thing you do is you focus on your audience and really think about how you want to target your message. So in county administered systems, this has been really, really helpful because you can really drill down to the zip code level. The other thing that's really interesting about Facebook is the capability to also drill down on languages and present multiple different types of ads based on the concentration of certain groups and demographics in a certain location. So that's a really great opportunity to really be able to identify families. And then, of course, and I know this is definitely a part of a longer conversation, but we can also target people based on income because there's a lot of really great data about how and where you fare with respect to income. And I think for people who are trying to engage programs that are underneath certain federal poverty level thresholds, that's actually really, really important. And then finally is content. So I know that content sometimes can be a little bit intimidating because it could potentially, depending on your departments, involve a lot of cross collaboration and maybe even sometimes consensus on creative, but you could really just get started with a photo. So there's 4 types of ways that you could develop content for a Facebook ad. A photo, a carousel, which would be a series of photos or a series of videos and photos, just a video, and then a slideshow that would play. And so I think the one thing that we've found to be useful when we're just really trying to deploy and get fast feedback on messages is there are many online libraries that have photos that are categorized under Creative Commons license. And so effectively, they're free for the world to use and reuse for purposes like these. And that's been really helpful for us as we've been able to deploy digital marketing. So after adding a photo and some resonating copy, you can effectively deploy your ad and then track conversions on an ongoing basis and then run some experiments. And so this is an example of an ad that we've spent a lot of time testing and tinkering with. But effectively, it's applying for an EBT card, see if you qualify for food health here, CalFresh program, 10 questions, 5 minutes. And so one thing to note is that before we really started to drive attention towards this ad, we did a side-by-side using slightly alternative language. So this was an experiment that we ran last year, really focusing on maybe some other pieces of the program enrollment that we wanted to share with users up front. So applying for an EBT card, apply, share availability, and enroll for food health. And so really giving people just a key overview of what would be involved, for example. And so this ad that we tested, it cost $10.37 to get one person to find out if they qualify, which is pretty expensive. But when we change that language to a question, applying for an EBT card, see if you qualify for food help here, same thing, CalFresh program, but we added time parameters. So 10 questions, 5 minutes, really focusing on this is something quick that you can do and move forward and at least take a step. So this resulted in a 50% reduction in cost after each ad reached between an estimated 9,000 to 10,000 people. So I think one of the takeaways from this is that there is really power in giving people a sense of how long things are roughly going to take, and not sharing too much about the enrollment journey up front, no matter what the sort of course may be for your program, but maybe incrementally sharing information as you proceed. So now I want to talk a little bit about AdWords. And so Google search engine also includes YouTube and also ads that accompany content all across the web. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to focus on the simplest ads, and so those are the ones that appear after you've Googled something online. So similar to Facebook, you choose effectively your campaign settings, and as you can see here, the traffic they have in California is estimated at 47 million users if you were to do just a statewide advertisement. And the cool thing about AdWords is that they also help us target students at universities too. So really, really important if you're really trying to think about really focused constituencies that you're trying to engage. Then you can specify keywords that you want to prompt people with if they search them. So one cool pro tip is that if you link your site up from Google from the beginning, it will make suggestions based on the traffic of current ads in your location. And so, for example, Social Security benefits in a given month was searched for 18,000 times. And so maybe even if your program is CalWorks, if you're trying to focus on increasing maybe more seniors on the program, for example, you might want to add Social Security benefits, just so a senior who might have been looking for Social Security benefits might discover what your program is too. And so it's a really interesting way to try to mobilize hard-to-reach populations. The other thing that we're more than happy to do, just because we've run so many different types of ads, is looking at historical data. So this is a snapshot of how words were performing in California in 2016, just looking back at, so if I'm running an ad in April, what was happening in April last year or 2 years ago around this time? What was the traction of certain words? And so one thing that was an insight from this data is that CalFresh was the #1 searched word, and also the #1 word that had prompts that would lead to people being prompted to and successfully taking the action of finding out they qualify in 2016. And I think this is a really great way to measure things like, you know, is there validation for the idea that in changing the name from food stamps, for example, to CalFresh, does that resonate with people? How do people now talk about food when they're trying to navigate the program? And this is at least one data point that supports that there's been some real programmatic wins on that in terms of brand awareness. So after going in and adding words based on historical data, making sure you get your geographic settings together, you could also input copy and then deploy your ad right away. And then you can have a near real-time data dashboard just to be able to see how things perform. So one thing about Bing, just because it is fairly newer than Google AdWords, is that Microsoft search engine platform allows us to import all of the ads in Google AdWords to utilize on their platform and to track conversions side by side. And so that's been really, really helpful as we're trying to think of not doing a lot of the same work over again manually. And so that's really just a quick shortcut to be able to run all of the things that you've invested in on one platform on another that's very similarly situated. So feedback and results. So how have these campaigns fared? And on our capital constrained budget, how have we been able to unlock benefits? So in total, inclusive not just of digital marketing strategies, but also from public strategies, we've been able to unlock, just looking at one program, $1.9 million in CalFresh benefits. And so it's really been helpful in being able to really understand what is a repeatable way that you could predict to allocate a certain amount of capital, and then think about how could you get a certain number of people from that stream. So Facebook, for example, we were able to get 4,393 households enrolled in the program, and these were Facebook referrals from that time frame. And then in terms of what this breakdown looked like financially, we spent about $32,000 to unlock almost $700,000 in CalFresh benefits. And so that's a really good investment if you're thinking about how could we deploy this capital. Another thing to note about Facebook, because of just the sheer volume of users, it's probably one of the most repeatable streams because of how consistently people use it. I would say Google, we could necessarily run, for example, a $10,000 ad in Yolo County, but that doesn't mean that we'll get the same amount of searches, if you will. But deploying that same capital on Instagram or Facebook, and one thing to note is that when you deploy capital on Facebook, they automatically deploy it on Instagram at the same time, format the ad at the same time, so you don't have to do this double work. We've really, really thought about it. So other referrals, Google. So we got about 1,100 referrals from Google, and that's been a really great win. And we spent about $9,000 to unlock $215,000 in benefits. So again, another really, really great investment through consistent use of the platform. And then finally, our Bing households, so not as many, but 691 households came directly from the Bing Microsoft channel. So that was really, really exciting to see. And we spent about $8,000 to unlock $133,000 in benefits utilizing that estimate. So along with paid digital marketing strategies, we also did digital public integration. So in San Francisco, every desktop in the public library system has a prompt to apply for CalFresh. And so nearly 600 families during May 2017 through December 2017 found out they qualify and utilize the platform for CalFresh during this period and parameter. So I think it's just one thing to note that when you think about digital integrations, yes, there's so many strategies for large volumes that you could put money on the table and pay for, but also there's free things that you can do just in approaching a partnership with the library. I will say it took about 3 weeks to get this link up live. And of course, there's some time to coordinate and make sure there's comfort level with logos across teams. But it's definitely worth it based on that investment. And so I want to talk a little bit just very briefly about what it means for us to unlock benefits for a family, because it's one thing to look at things in terms of numbers, and it's another to really think about the impact it drives on a personal level. And so one user that came through the library channel, her name is Henrietta, and she is a 74-year-old woman whose primary computer is at the public library. She communicates through an app that transcribes her voice into text messages for follow-up. And so while it's important to talk about the numbers, I want you to hear a little bit of what it meant for her to unlock CalFresh through these integrations.
I went shopping the next day as instructed. I was just so happy to have fresh meat that I could put away, and all the vegetables that I wanted. I felt like I was loud. I got asparagus and avocado, one of every kind of lettuce at lunch. I washed all the leaves and put them away, and twice a day I had salad.
So I think it's just a really important thing to remember that every dollar, every time we unlock benefits, we're unlocking these experiences for people. Just to have not just a little more, but just also just some joy, just because I really do believe that every program that we have voted on that is now part of the safety net unlocks some type of joy for everyday people in our community. So we've been doing some thinking and learning and partnering and conversing here with Pete, but also through some pilot counties, and we've come up with some newer strategies that we're excited to be pursuing now as well. So one of the things that mRelief is, so mRelief, the small m in mRelief is sort of an homage to the naming signature of text messaging apps throughout sub-Saharan Africa. So if you're ever, in Kenya or Ghana or anywhere like that, you see an M in front of an app, it means that you can text at it. So as an organization that has really prided itself on providing avenues, multiple avenues to help people unlock information, we also know that text messaging can be even more effective in getting response. So that means that someone on SMS is 2 times more likely to finish a process in terms of being able to get from starting a conversation and then getting to a result in terms of finding out you qualify than someone who does that same process on web. And so we're currently deploying an experiment to compare the probability that someone will apply on web to the probability that they will apply on SMS. And the nice thing about it is that Facebook also has an approach that supports TCPA compliance. And so you can see here that instead of someone clicking to find out they can qualify, we could do a side-by-side that says sign up. And then someone can enter their phone number and give us the privacy protections and sign on to the privacy protections of, that would enable us to text them and retext them as we're trying to engage them about the program. And so I think that's a huge win, especially for many counties right now who are really trying to think about how can we start the conversation utilizing a medium that's accessible, but also kind of constrained because there's a lot of legal barriers and hurdles to being able to deploy text messaging. And so this is a really huge win for our team. And then Google AdWords also has recently deployed a similar feature where you could effectively text CalFresh Now or text just by clicking on this feature to really be able to start the process. And this is for people like Henrietta, the Henriettas throughout California, where their main public library, their main desktop computer is at the public library. And we know that Pew Research Center has shared with us that 33% of Americans who make under $30,000 a year do not have access to a smartphone, and about 50% of those same Americans do not have reliable access to a computer in their home. And so it's really about diversifying, yes, continuing web strategies, but also having a way to get harder to reach populations. And then in terms of the ultimate direction that we're going in as an organization is really being able to build out command centers for our partners where they could really have a global sense of how their social media referrals are actually leading to results. And so results sometimes looks like the first step in engagement, but also the entire funnel, right? So how many people who find out they qualify apply? How many people who apply actually attend interviews? How many people who attend interviews actually submit documentation? And how many people who submit documentation effectively enroll and access the benefit? And so we know that through following people through this process that we can unlock that data and that we can start to do some more in-depth analysis about why certain channels might be more advantageous for the end result that we want, which is unlocking benefits altogether. So we're really excited to continue our partnership and also just visualizing the journey and getting feedback along the way about the best ways to engage the communities that we serve every day. So thank you. Awesome. So I would love to take questions or just comments. Any feedback whatsoever.
Are you live connected on our network?
Live connected.
Can you pull up mRelief.com and show people the virtual?
Yes. So this is our platform online, specifically our new CalFresh screener. So it first starts with a really quick question, such as, who are you applying with? Are you applying for CalFresh for just yourself or for multiple people? So just me, I'll say. And then income. So specifically, we like to really try to key in on specificity. We've done a lot of testing with this platform, and then also give people a little bit more information as they're trying to understand more about the process. And so here I will say no. Or yes, I did receive income in the past 30 days. And then now we've also been able to really give people more of a gauge of what specific income parameter that they should fall under, and also with some information on before taxes. And this is a process that we worked really closely with the San Francisco Human Services Agency to develop. So I'll say no, or actually I'll say yes, less than 2010, and then we can come back. And then if someone is currently receiving income from Social Security, we can say no to this just because we can get through to the eligible page. And then in terms of one of the following categories, so we made this question general enough just because we know we are in some really interesting times here, but effectively we can just preference and share U.S. citizen here. And then finally, 2 more questions. So about being age 60 or older, we'll say no to this and no to receiving disability payments. And then students, we know, who work half-time or more also have different constraints when we look at CalFresh eligibility, so we will say yes. However, we will indicate that we work an average of 20 hours a week or more, making at least $7.25 an hour. And so the final page. So interestingly enough, we actually didn't have these logos here, and we saw that it increased conversion rate by 20% just by letting them know we don't just do this by ourselves. So we are working in partnership with organizations. So it was a huge win for the team when we did this. And I will enter a fake number just so I don't start a series of text messages. Okay. All right. Good news. You're likely eligible, and then you can start the process of applying. And so effectively now, we also have an application assister tool that we've developed in partnership with the San Francisco Human Services Agency to submit a streamlined application for the process. This also includes the capability to schedule based on inventory, as well as the capability to submit documents through an uploader tool, an assister tool, and then an integration with their, Calvin Light website to understand outcomes on the basis of this process. So I'm going to go through the whole application online, but that's effectively the experience. I can also say that, so if someone had said, for example, that they're ineligible, okay, I'll just say, okay, so in this case, this is a case where someone would need more information. So there's multiple different types of pages that we can share to prompt users to continue the conversation with the county. And then in cases where someone is ineligible altogether, and we do a double check on this question just because Social Security can sometimes be confusing. Hold on a second, let me see if I put that right. So I think that this is part of Just a second, okay. So in case, for example, someone says, I made above the income threshold, we also give them an opportunity to confirm that. And if, for example, yes, that's the case, we'll share resources. But if, for example, no, that's not the case, give them the opportunity to screen again. And so with this new platform, we've really been able to catch some errors. And we do employ the process of giving more people eligible responses and more people, pointing more people towards applying based on some income logic that we've gotten from the policy teams, just because at the end of the day, we don't want to dissuade people from applying. But these are just three of the major outcomes. I would look at it, I guess that's other programs, your eligibility between programs. Yes. So we also did quite a bit of sort of cross eligibility through a multi-program screening tool. I won't go through the whole demo, but I'll just share with you. Oops, so sorry. I know this browser is a little funky. But the key programs that we assist with are CalFresh, CalWorks, and also Child Care Help. So the Child Care Help assists with, I believe it's 12 different types of programs throughout the child care infrastructure, both CDE and CDSS. So we did work a lot on that. I don't have the numbers at the ready in terms of just the overlap. I do know we did have, I think, some additional commitment from CalFresh to do specific advertisement and targeting, but there was quite a bit of runoff. So several hundreds of users who, in applying for CalFresh, then went on to apply for other types of programs. But we're really excited to explore a lot of those synergies where programs have really high overlap in application questions so that we can really support passing that data along in a secure way. So San Francisco also did. It wasn't as close with the, it wasn't as close in terms of the high touch that CalFresh had, but San Francisco, and of course this was live throughout the state. And our ads that we've run in certain locations, specifically on Bing, have been statewide ads. So that gave people an opportunity. But I do want to stress, though, that with the capabilities of targeting that come with digital marketing, we really can point people in the direction to having the type of journey that we want to support. So, for example, if we're working with the CalFresh team, we really will point them directly to start first with CalFresh, not necessarily start first with a multi-program screener and then go that way, just so that we can have higher completion rates first for the one program and then re-engage based on the data we got in the first round.
Is this tool also available via the Social Services website? And if not, do you find that people have issues maybe with third-party websites for state or federal related? I know I would be concerned that like I don't know these people and they're trying to get some information. So
yeah, I think on our team, when we talk about this issue, we talk about designing for trust. So it's not, I don't believe it's on the CDSS website, but it is on the San Francisco Human Service Agency website, and it is on the Yolo County's website as well. And so at different points in the process, when we notice that people have hesitation, this is obviously a lot easier to do on text messaging because we can actually re-engage them right at that point. We'll follow up with links that share more about our partnerships across the state, right? So a lot of articles that have been written based on the CNN Money article or the viral video that went live on Now This News, so that they can really get validation from all of these other third parties that really just legitimize this is the thing, this isn't like a website to just scrape your information. And we found that the two critical points that we really want to provide this reminder is if someone is likely eligible and they're using the application assister tool and they're entering SSN, definitely you want to follow up there. And then also during the signature page as well, where we're talking about how we're going to assist with information and privacy issues. Thank you. So interestingly enough, right now we're looking at deploying a strategy with the job centers on campus, because specifically right now a lot of students are looking for summer jobs. But that is a great idea that I will share with our growth and partnerships manager.
About that, because I noticed that you ask for phone number even though they know they are qualified.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So platform-wide, we do ask for phone numbers, and specifically because sometimes eligibility requirements change, and we want to be able to re-engage people based on those shifts. So I know, for example, we're live in Illinois. We're Illinois-based nonprofit. The eligibility requirements went from 130 to 165%. And so at the top of the year, we actually deployed a text messaging campaign to every person who made who made below 165%, but over 130%, to re-engage them to give it a shot and apply. And then also the students who were not eligible, like when we first started this work maybe 4 years ago, but maybe, hopefully not, but maybe they are eligible now. And so thinking about some of the ways in which poverty functions as a state, not necessarily as a class, but a state that kind of can change over time, gives us some ability to re-engage people who fall in certain demographics and buckets. So that's why. Though we don't validate phone number until you share highly sensitive PII. So technically for some homeless people, we do give them the option to just put in 444, 44444 if they want to.
I think when I asked, if I can interrupt just a little bit, I think there are a couple of takeaways that I want folks to look at. One of the reasons I asked you to bring this screener up in particular was that, as you can see, this is not your typical government fillable PDF form application, right? This is very simple. It's very straightforward. It's the basic questions that people need to answer to get a quick read on whether it's worth their time going through the trouble. Unlike some of our SAWS consortia pages now, even when they have a screener, you can't go through the screener until you create an account, right? It's not user-friendly. What you notice from what Rose showed you, and when she ran through the 7 screens for CalFresh, 10 questions, very straightforward, explains everything, and the only thing that you had to put in there was a phone number if you wanted to be able to be reached and tracked. Yeah. So they don't have your name, they don't have your birth date, they don't have your social, they don't have any of that stuff unless you're ready and willing to choose to share it. The citizenship question, national politics aside, a lot of people don't want to share that. It's completely anonymized here, but it's an essential piece of knowing whether you're eligible or not. So it's simple, it's straightforward. There was consumer testing. You've heard her talk about, she uses the word conversion a lot. Conversion means for the people who visited this, how many of them actually ended up applying, right? And so that's a really important metric. And I think she started showing, it cost us more than $10 to get somebody screened in that one. Change the wording just a little bit, the price falls in half because you get twice as many people applying through that. So words matter. And it speaks to the importance of user-centered design, keeping it simple for people, making sure that it's voluntary for them. There's a lot of work that went in here. I know you work closely with our policy teams and with San Francisco's policy teams. Like, what is the bare minimum that we need to get to? Sure, we can put you through a SAWS 2+ or the school meals application. You know, those are not simple things that people like, oh, wow, I want to feed my kid. What the hell is this? Right? You know, nobody wants to fill out. Our form is 28 pages if you want a multi-program application. Is it worth even starting that? Find out, and you can do it really quickly. So this, for us, was some of the real attractiveness of doing this. And those principles that underline that work, there could be other programs listed here. And I think that was kind of the point. Yeah. This is a lot of work's been done. You heard her talk about the outreach and social media marketing, but also the design of the tool, its accessibility for clients, its convenience for them. You can do this at home in your pajamas. You don't need to go down to the county office at 9 o'clock when they open one day.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of the benefits to that kind of thinking. And, you know, for all of those reasons, we're really grateful to Rose and mRelief for the work they put into demoing how this can be done. She didn't talk to you at all about work on UC Davis and Yolo County and UC Davis, what they're doing there. She talked with me separately about some work they've done with physicians and hospitals in San Francisco and making referrals to clients who had nutritional needs. And so she's explored, we did bus ads for a short duration, which, by the way, are not effective.
Yeah.
But we've tried a whole bunch of different channels for this stuff and really learning what works, what doesn't work, how to target. It's all been really interesting for us. So now that I've interrupted your presentation, I'll go back if anybody has other questions. I want to maximize her availability.
No, absolutely.
Is it possible to explore the child care help section? I'm really curious with the intereligibility issues, as you said, 12 different different agencies.
Sure. So I'm going to go through I know this is a pretty long screener, and I will definitely send you the link after, but I want to just talk about some of the usability design. So this is a one-page screening tool. We did do kind of a page-by-page filtering down based on that, starting first with, are you a parent or guardian of a child age 21 or younger? Are you a CalWORKS or CalLearn participant in age of child? We also go through some of the needs around childcare to support certain functions and whether or not a child is receiving child protective services. So some of those questions before then getting the cell phone number. And so now one thing to note about this is that many of the questions here do kind of lead to follow-up questions. But we want to at least first start with the base, and only in the event that these initial questions do not really satisfy the initial requirements, will we then ask follow-up questions. And then also, it's completely linked with the referral directory for childcare, so that based on zip code, we can really help people discover and find out about where it is they can get connected to childcare services. It's a little different for childcare, obviously. It's not necessarily like an application that or a statewide application that you can launch. So I think that can make referral a little different, but at least it really does get people going and knowing where do I go, who do I call, and being able to start that process. And we should totally talk her too about childcare.
She's on our list.
Okay.
Erin from First 5 California.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll definitely talk about it.
Yeah, we didn't do intros in the room.
Okay. Oops. So sorry. So is anyone in the room going to at least think about trying a social media campaign, maybe in response to this, or maybe having conversations about what maybe a timeline or what it could look like?
I don't know if folks in the room are doing it, but we're talking a lot about social media campaigns in our efforts to find people that might make potential foster parents.
Ah. That's a great
other applications of some of the marketing as well as the department. I'm sure there are other applications as well.
We've been engaged in a very progressive social media campaign around parentification, thing, and you're wondering how that shifts in the next generation of our campaign
not just offering things, but the other supports that people they have access to.
Wow, yeah. Mm. Really awesome.
It has application too to some of our disaster response activities. As a department, we do mass care and shelter. So when there's a wildfire and the center is staffed up, what's the quick screening tool that we might be able to bring up to help the people? How do we target messages through social media, like where are the shelters in my area?
Yeah.
All of those kinds of things. Where's the local assistance center for 2 weeks after the event where you can go and get signed up for FEMA grants? Like just sharing the basics of like where do you go, who do you call? There's lots of potential applications. We've even talked about this in cases like a department-wide emergency or need to deploy people. We can say, don't come to the downtown towers. There's an active shooter a block away, and we can potentially tell people to stay away. So there's lots of applications for how we potentially target the messaging that we do in a variety of different circumstances.
Excellent.
There is no active shooter.
Okay.
We need to be clear about that.
Yeah. And I think, so we've focused a lot on web today, but text messaging has also been a huge opportunity for us. And so being able to text 74544 just to start the conversation to find out if you qualify has also been really, really helpful for low-income families as well.
Do we have any questions about the webinar?
Okay. Excellent. I know they found a lot of my notes. So had even a little more information. But yeah.
Are you guys involved in any way, shape, or form in West Africa? What you're talking about?
It's funny. It's a question I'm getting a lot more often in terms of, it's tough because, when we think about some of the safety net programs that we're utilizing technology to connect people to, they don't yet exist in the same way in Ghana, right? So there isn't a SNAP program or a CalFresh or Ghana Fresh program. Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about it in my mind, and while I haven't gotten involved in the way that looks like deploying mRelief in Ghana, I definitely stay in touch and in conversation with a lot of the other M apps throughout the continent. So mPedigree is an application in sub-Saharan Africa, specifically in Ghana, that is trying to combat the issue of counterfeit medication. So in many parts of Ghana, at a certain point over the past 5 years, they've really driven this number down. But you would go to a pharmacy and you wouldn't know if it was life-saving medication or it was just counterfeit medication, right? And so you could effectively look at the barcode, text a number, and find out, yes, our supplier says this is something we produce, it's good medication, or no, this is not good medication. And so really using text messaging to solve problems, to get people concrete answers so that they can take decisions, is something that's very pervasive throughout sub-Saharan Africa. I would say now internet access is becoming more and more available, which is great, which means there's more web applications too. And so it's been interesting to kind of see some of the usability and design lessons that we share in terms of how we built out our end-to-end process for CalFresh. And I'll also say M-Pesa is another really interesting app that allows people to send money. So I don't know. I do think in my lifetime we might see a type of food stamps cryptocurrency or something like that, where you can kind of send food stamps through text messaging at the end of the process. Yeah. Other thoughts? I know we have only a couple minutes left. Yes.
So imagine I type in to Google CalFresh. How far
down
page do I have to search before I find this?
mRelief. Good question. So I will say, I know Pete and I met at the Code for America Summit. So Code for America is another great organization that's connecting people to CalFresh through the CalFresh app. 80% of their user base comes from Google AdWords, according to at least the CalFresh forum. So I would say they probably will show up higher than mRelief. But yeah, and Google has backed their work, and as a part of that, some of that support comes as well. So that's really, really exciting, and they're a really great nonprofit service in the space too.
One of your advertising criteria about income, how accurate is that?
How accurate is the income? So what I'll say is accuracy depends on the preference of the county. So at different points, counties have asked us to change, if you will, income limits and how we ask the income questions. So sometimes, even if you fall 20% above the 200% FPL, we've been asked to kind of shift that and change that, just in case there was error, and it might still be worth it for that family to apply. And so I would say that's the case. We also have a automated text messaging flow that asks people if they fall in sort of the 165% to 200% about that as well.
Then my question is not about the question, but about the how do you choose the timing and pick the location?
Oh, right.
How accurate is
How accurate
that?
is Facebook's income prediction? So I would say, we haven't done a lot of in-depth analysis on it, but I would say a vast majority of our ineligible people are on SSI. They're not, by just the number of being ineligible on the basis of income. And there isn't an SSI, SSP kind of advertising target just yet, but it has been extremely rare for us to get users who are ineligible on the basis of income alone. Well, I guess I would just say, well, thank you so much for sharing your time and engaging in a discussion, a great discussion with your questions. I'm really, really excited to continue this work and just continue to be a thought partner with you as we figure out more ways to help people find out if they qualify and, of course, convert and apply. Thank you.